This is OJ. The cannon cart is a fairly high-cost 5 elixir card. Combining its shield and regular health, it has as many hit points as a knight, and it's as threatening as a musketeer if it connects to your tower with 169 damage per second. It's incredibly tanky and has a unique shield mechanic. It is not to be confused with the battle ram. It is not a lightning rod. Its shield functions exactly like a Dark Princess shield. Once that shield pops off, the lightning stops targeting the cannon cart. Overall, it's very resilient to spells. A fireball isn't enough to take off the shield, but it's still considered a smaller unit, so fireball and bowler will be able to knock it back. While it's rolling, hog, balloon, battle ram, golems, and the giant won't target the cannon cart. But once the wheels pop off, it turns into a building, and that's when those units will start targeting it. In building form, it has a shorter lifetimer compared to other buildings. Untouched, it'll last exactly 20 seconds. Since its first stage does not attract ground troops, it is not a direct substitute for a regular cannon. Turns out the golems will ignore it since it has wheels. Can you heal a cannon cart? Yes, but only if it's in its first stage and still has its wheels. It's still considered a regular unit in this form. Once those wheels pop off, it's classified as a building and heal spell will not work on it. On the same note, you can clone it while it's rolling, and the clone will have a shield as well, effectively making it the only building in the game that you're able to clone. But once that shield is gone, it is a building and clone will not work on the cannon. Just like a Lava Hound or Night Witch, this is one of the best cards in the game that you can clone, particularly because this is the first card that Tornado can't fully kill a clone card. Once that shield breaks, it's a building, immune to the damages of Tornado. The card is decent on offense. Pairing it with something fast like a battle ram lets you bridge rush the Princess Tower. But of course, this is a 9 elixir push, and you better be sure you're already leading with a huge elixir advantage or you're going to be facing a terrible counter push. Another complementary combo to this pair is a Hog Rider. They're both fast, and the cart can support the hog at a range. Kinda like a musketeer, but the cart moves a lot faster. When a tower is down, if you place the cart on the 4th tile from the river, the king and the princess towers are immediately within range while it's deploying. It'll manage to land 5 shots on the tower. If you place the cannon cart on the 3rd tile, it's out of range of the king's tower while deploying, but it'll still land 5 shots, dealing 1,000 damage to that tower. So if you place the cannon cart on the 2nd tile from the river, when it rolls toward the princess tower, it remains out of range of the king tower, landing 8 shots, dealing over 1,600 damage. The only drawback to this placement is that it takes longer to lock onto the princess tower, giving your opponent way more time to react and plant a distraction unit. So if you're in a pinch and you need to be within range immediately, that 4th tile will be ideal. Just gauge the situation and react accordingly on what your opponent can and can't defend. The deadliest thing about the cannon cart is that it can counter most ground units fairly well. Like if a hog is coming by, of course it'll get a couple smacks on your princess tower. But now your opponent has to deal with a cannon cart. Even if you choose not to counter push, your opponent now has to commit quite a bit more elixir than just an ice spear to take it out. It deals over 200 damage per attack. This means it takes out the ice spirit in one shot. So unlike a musketeer, executioner, or a baby dragon, the ice spirit does not stop the cannon at all. You're evaporating that 1 elixir by playing an ice spirit. Smaller units like skeletons or goblins aren't as effective at taking care of it either. It's essentially a ranged knight that can one-shot goblins, so you can't kite it. It may share the same DPS as a musketeer, but it's got twice the health. Even a goblin gang has trouble countering it, barely stopping it, and usually these guys are pretty effective at taking care of most non-splashing ground units. My point is that your disposable swarm cards aren't going to be as effective against the cart. Just like a musketeer, it can prevent most of the damage from a goblin barrel. They'll only get 2 stabs on your tower. The cannon shoots pretty fast. You generally have to commit at least a 3 elixir knight just to counter this card. With its fast 1.2 second attack speed, it's very good on defense. It can 2-shot archers, princess, dart goblin, or the bomber. It's kinda like a more expensive musketeer that only attacks ground. If you compare the musketeer to guards, she 3-shots each guard, but the cannon cart kills each guard in 2 shots. Guards are a decent counter, but are not super effective. since the card is one of the few troops to be able to one-shot the shields. It can tank a bandit, take it out, and counterattack. Essentially, this is a net of a 2 elixir counter push. It'll still have the shield and land at least 3 shots on your opponent's princess tower if they ignore it. One unique way of countering it is to disarm the shield on your opponent's side, so if it has a sliver of health and you zap it, it'll just decay over there within 20 seconds. This is practical as long as you don't need to push anytime soon. Using that same logic, it is absolutely worth it to rocket a crown tower with a cannon cart, dealing just under 500 damage to the princess tower for essentially 1 elixir. Thing with a battle ram, it can barely stop a battle ram from connecting to your tower, but just barely. The barbs will land some swings. Depending on your situation, if you don't have skeletons or an ice golem to tank those barbarians, it's best to just plant the cannon cart in front of the barbarians to tank. Just like the bandit, it'll survive with a sliver of health, and it is very threatening that forces your opponent to stop it from locking onto their tower. A big guy like an executioner can counter the cannon cart on your side, but he will die. This is a pretty big deal. He costs 5 elixir and dies even with that princess tower helping. The best 2 elixir card to stop an unsupported cart is the ice golem. It stalls the cart long enough to pop, leaving it out of range of that princess tower. But if you plant the golem too late, it'll roll within range of your tower, so when it pops, it'll keep sniping the tower. Timing is key. A pretty effective spell at preventing too much damage is using the log. Right before it's about to die, cast the log, and this pushes it out of range right as that shield breaks. It'll be out of range of your tower. If you use the bowler or the log on a battle ram right before it dies, it double dips in damage, hits the ram and the barbarians. But this is not the case for the cannon cart. Their splash attacks will not deal twice the damage to it. Another effective spell at making sure the cart can't lock onto your tower is a tornado. Pull it right before it pops, and the tower will snipe it ever so gently. One of the things about this card is that you'll need to be sure to have some anti-air to back up this cart. It's like a bowler. They both cost 5 elixir, and they are both defensive ground units, so obviously they're weak to air. The key difference is that the bowler moves and attacks much slower compared to a cannon cart, so even a minion horde can't stop the cannon cart from locking onto your tower, unless you have something like skeletons or ice golem to distract the cart. One of the scary things about this card is that half of its health is in its shield. This means against the mini P.E.K.K.A, it's crazy tanky because of the rounding interactions, so it'll just survive with a bit of health on the mini P.E.K.K.A twice. You can easily counter this card with Skeleton Army. There are just way too many dudes for it to shoot fast enough. Therefore, a pretty good card to pack with the cannon cart is a poison spell. The cannon cart does not outrange any buildings, but because of its high damage and health, just like a bowler, it's quite effective at countering siege decks with Expo or Mortar. Against an Inferno Tower or Dragon,